My DIL took over my home. Just stay out of the way. 3 weeks later, she was packing. I was folding laundry when the garage door opened. That was the first thing. The sound of the garage door at 10:15 on a Tuesday morning. My son Daniel had left for work at 7. His wife Jenna left at 8:30. I knew their schedules like I knew the cracks in my own knuckles. So when that motor groaned and the door rattled up, I stopped with a pillowcase half turned right side out. I listened. Footsteps, high heels on concrete. Then the door from the garage to the mudroom slammed. Jenna never slams doors. She is a soft closer, a whisperer, a woman who moves through rooms like she is sorry for taking up space. Or that was the Jenna I knew. She came into the kitchen carrying 2 cardboard boxes. Not grocery boxes, moving boxes, the kind you get from U-Haul. She was still wearing her work clothes, gray blazer, pearls, the same pearls I gave her when she married Daniel. I remember saving for those pearls for 6 months, layaway at the mall. I went every Friday to put down $20 until they were paid off. She saw me looking at the boxes and she smiled. Not a happy smile, a smile that said, I have decided something and you will not like it. Mom, I need to talk to you about the guest room. I said, what about it? She set the boxes on the counter. She opened the first one. Inside were my things, my grandmother's quilt, the porcelain dolls my mother collected, my wedding album in its white leather cover, the baptism gowns of both my children, my son's first pair of sneakers preserved in a shadow box, all of it packed neatly with tissue paper between each layer. Jenna is a very neat person. She had even labeled the boxes in black marker, guest room, personal effects. I said, Jenna, what is this? She said, we are converting the guest room into a nursery. The baby needs a space of its own, and the guest room gets the best morning light. I have already ordered the crib and the glider and the wallpaper. It is a soft sage green, very calming. We will need you to move your things into storage, or perhaps into your bedroom, whatever is easiest for you. She was 4 months pregnant. This was her first. My first grandchild, a girl. They already had a name picked out, Charlotte. I was going to be Grandma Joyce. I had already bought a little yellow dress with a matching bonnet. I kept it in my closet, wrapped in tissue paper. I took it out sometimes just to look at it, to touch the tiny buttons, to imagine her face. I said, the guest room is where I sleep. Jenna said, I know, Mom, but you are not really a guest. You live here, so you have your bedroom. That is your space. The guest room was never really yours. It was just a place for your extra things while you got settled. But you have been with us for almost 2 years now, and you seem very settled, so we thought it was time to reclaim that room for the baby. 2 years. I had been living in my son's house for 2 years, after Frank died, after the stroke took him on a Tuesday afternoon while he was pruning the rose bushes. I found him face down in the mulch. His glasses were crooked. His hand was still holding the shears. I screamed so loud the neighbor 2 houses down came running in his bathrobe. That was 3 years ago. The first year I stayed in the house Frank and I bought in 1987, the house where we raised Daniel and his sister Rachel. But the stairs became hard. The mortgage became hard. The quiet became impossible. Daniel said, come live with us. Jenna said we have plenty of room. They had just bought this big colonial with 4 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms and a finished basement. They were so proud. I was so grateful. I sold the house. I gave them most of the money. Not a loan, a gift. They said, we will take care of you, Mom. We are family. I believed them. I said, Jenna, the guest room is my sewing room. It is where I keep my machine, where I make the curtains and the pillows and the quilts. I made that quilt on the couch. I made the drapes in the dining room. I made the Christmas stockings with everyone's names embroidered in gold thread. She said, you can sew in your bedroom. There is plenty of space. We can get you a small table, a portable one. They sell them at Joann Fabrics. I looked it up. Plenty of space. My bedroom was 12 feet by 12 feet. It had a double bed, a dresser, a nightstand, and a rocking chair that had been my mother's. There was no room for a sewing table. There was no room for a chair to sit in while I sewed. There was barely room to walk between the bed and the wall. But I did not say that. I said, okay, let me talk to Daniel about this. Jenna's smile did not change, but her eyes did. They got smaller, harder, like marbles. Daniel agrees with me, she said. We discussed it last night. He thinks the baby should have the best room in the house, and the guest room gets the best light. That is just a fact. It is not personal. It is about what is best for Charlotte. Charlotte was not born yet. She was a cluster of cells with a name and a claim to the best room in the house,
And I was a grandmother who had given up her home, her savings, her independence, to live under someone else's roof and sleep in someone else's guest room with someone else's permission. I said, "When do you need me to move my things?" She said, "The painters come on Monday, so by Sunday night." This was Tuesday. I had 5 days to empty the only space in that house that felt like mine. The guest room had my sewing machine on a folding table. It had my grandmother's rocking chair in the corner. It had a bookshelf with all my paperbacks. It had a radio I played at night when I could not sleep. It had a window that faced the backyard, where a pair of cardinals built a nest every spring. That room was not a bedroom to me. It was a lifeboat.
And Jenna was cutting the rope. I did not fight her. I am 68 years old. I have learned that fighting younger women is like fighting a current. You just get tired and drown anyway. So I spent the next 5 days moving my things into my bedroom. The quilts went on top of the dresser. The dolls went into plastic bins under the bed. The sewing machine went into the closet on the floor because there was no table. I sat on the edge of my bed that Sunday night and looked at the room. My grandmother's chair was wedged between the bed and the wall. You could not sit in it without moving the nightstand first. My books were stacked on the floor in 3 leaning towers. The radio was on the windowsill, balanced between a potted plant and a vase of fake flowers. It looked like a storage unit. It looked like the room of a woman who had been told to shrink. Daniel came in that night. He stood in the doorway with his hands in his pockets. He looked at the room the way you look at a car accident, with pity, but also with relief that it was not you. "Mom, I know this is hard," he said. I said, "It is fine. Jenna is just very organized. She likes things to have a place. She is pregnant and hormonal, and she wants everything perfect for the baby. Try to be patient with her." I said, "I am always patient with her." He nodded. He kissed the top of my head, the way Frank used to kiss the top of my head. Then he said something I have replayed 1,000 times since then. He said, "Mom, just try to stay out of the way. That is the best thing you can do right now. Just stay out of the way and let us handle everything. Stay out of the way." I was in the way. In my son's house, in my granddaughter's nursery, in my own life. I was in the way. The next 2 weeks were strange. Jenna became the general of a small domestic army. Painters came and painted the guest room sage green. Then carpenters came and installed built-in shelves. Then a delivery truck came with a white crib and a white dresser and a white glider with cushions the color of lavender. Jenna stood in the hallway with a clipboard directing traffic. She did not ask me what I thought of the colors or the furniture or the stuffed animals arranged on the shelf like soldiers. She did not ask me anything. She said good morning when she passed me in the kitchen, but it was the good morning you say to a neighbor you do not really know. A good morning that means please do not start a conversation. I tried to help. I offered to iron the crib sheets. Jenna said she already did them. I offered to sew curtains for the nursery. She said she already bought them at Pottery Barn. I offered to make a quilt for Charlotte. She said she already ordered one from Etsy from a woman in Oregon who uses organic cotton and low VOC dyes. Everything I offered, she had already done. Everything I knew how to do, she had already found someone better to do it. One night, I was in the kitchen making tea. Jenna came in with her phone to her ear. She was talking to someone. Her mother, I think. I heard her say she is still here. I heard her say it is like having a ghost, someone who just drifts through the house, touching things. Then she saw me standing by the stove. Her face did not change. She just turned her back and walked into the living room. She did not apologize. She did not explain. She just kept talking like I was furniture, like I could not hear. That was the first crack. Not a break, a crack. The kind you see in a windshield after a small stone hits it. You think it is fine. You think you can still drive. But the crack is there now, and you cannot stop looking at it. The second crack came 3 days later. I was in my bedroom reading, or trying to read. The radio was on low. I heard the front door open and close. Then voices. Jenna and a man. The man was not Daniel. Daniel has a deep voice. This voice was higher, softer, almost a whisper. I heard them go into the kitchen. I heard the refrigerator open. I heard the clink of glasses. I told myself it was nothing. A colleague, a contractor, a friend. But something made me get up and walk to the door of my bedroom. The door was half open. I could see down the hallway to the kitchen. Jenna was standing at the counter with a man. He was tall, mid-30s maybe, dark hair, expensive shoes. His hand was on her lower back. Not the way a colleague touches you, the way a man touches a woman when he has touched her before. I did not say anything. I closed my door and sat back down on my bed. My hands were shaking, not from fear, from knowing. I had been married to Frank for 42 years. I knew what a man looked like when he wanted a woman who was not his wife. I knew what a woman looked like when she let him. Jenna's body was relaxed against his, her head tilted, her mouth soft. She was pregnant with my son's child, and another man's hand was on her back. I waited until Daniel came home. He walked in at 6:45, like always. He kissed Jenna on the cheek. He asked about her day. She said fine. He asked about the baby. She said kicking. He asked about dinner. She said she ordered pizza. He said great. I watched them from the doorway of the kitchen. They looked like a normal couple, a normal husband and a normal pregnant wife. But I had seen the man with the expensive shoes. I had seen the hand on the back. I had seen the soft mouth. That night I could not sleep. I lay in my bed and listened to the house settle, the creak of the stairs, the hum of the furnace, the distant sound of Daniel snoring in the master bedroom down the hall. I thought about telling him. I thought about walking into their room at 2 a.m. and saying, I saw something. I saw a man. I saw his hand. I saw her face. But what would happen then? He would be angry. He would confront her. She would deny it. She would say I was confused, old, imagining things.
He would believe her because she was his wife and she was carrying his child, and I was just an old woman in the guest room who needed to stay out of the way. So I said nothing. The third crack was an envelope. I found it on the kitchen counter on a Thursday morning. Jenna had left for work. Daniel had left for work. The house was empty. The envelope was addressed to Jenna and Daniel from a law firm, a name I did not recognize, Friedman and Associates. I picked it up. It was not sealed. I do not know why I opened it. I tell myself it was an accident, that my fingers just slipped. But I know the truth. I opened it because I already did not trust her. I opened it because I had seen the man in the hand and the soft mouth, and I needed to know what else was hiding behind her pearl necklace and her Pottery Barn curtains. Inside was a letter, 3 pages, legal language. I read it standing at the kitchen counter with my coffee getting cold. The letter was about the house, my son's house, the house I had helped them buy with the money from the sale of my home. The letter said that Jenna was in the process of refinancing the property solely in her name, that Daniel had signed a quitclaim deed, transferring his ownership interest to her as part of a postnuptial agreement, that the house was no longer marital property, that in the event of a divorce, Jenna would retain full ownership, and Daniel would have no claim. I read it 3 times. The words did not change. Daniel had given away the house. His house. My money. His future. And Jenna was pregnant with another man's hand on her back. I called Daniel at work. He did not answer. I called again. He did not answer. I texted him. Call me. It is important. He texted back an hour later. In meetings. What is it? I texted back. The house. The letter. Friedman and Associates. He texted back. I will come home early. We will talk. He came home at 4. Jenna was not home yet. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where I had taught him to do his homework, where he had learned to tie his shoes, where he had told me he was going to marry Jenna, and I had smiled and said, she seems very nice, even though something in my chest had whispered, wait. I put the letter on the table. What is this? I said. He looked at the letter. He did not pick it up. He already knew what it was. It is a financial arrangement, he said, for the baby, for the future. Jenna's parents are wealthy. They wanted to make sure the baby was protected. They wanted to make sure Jenna had security if anything happened to me. If anything happened to you. You know, an accident, an illness. Life is unpredictable. Life is unpredictable. That is what the doctor said after Frank's stroke. Life is unpredictable. We did everything we could. I am sorry for your loss. I said, Daniel, did Jenna ask you to sign this? He said she explained it to me. She said it was standard. A lot of couples do it, especially when there is a large age gap. Especially when one spouse has more assets. Jenna did not have more assets. Jenna had student loans and a leased car and a clothing budget that ate up most of her paycheck. Her parents had assets. Her father owned a chain of car dealerships. Her mother had inherited money from her own mother.
They had a lake house and a condo in Florida, and a portfolio managed by a man named Bruce, who called them twice a week to tell them how much richer they were getting. Jenna did not have money. Her parents had money, and Jenna was their only child, and they wanted their grandchild to have everything, including my son's house. I said, "Daniel, do you love her?" He looked at me like I had asked him if the sky was blue. "Of course I love her." I said, "Do you trust her?" He hesitated. It was a small hesitation, a flicker, a blink. "But I am his mother. I saw it." "Yes," he said, "I trust her." I said, "I saw a man here last week, a tall man with dark hair, expensive shoes. He had his hand on her back, the way you would touch someone you were close to, the way you would touch someone you loved." Daniel's face went white, then red, then white again. "Who was he?" he said. I said, "I do not know. I did not ask. I thought you should know." He stood up. He pushed his chair back so hard it fell over. He walked out of the kitchen. I heard him go into the garage. I heard the car start. Then nothing. Then the garage door opened, and he drove away. He came back 3 hours later. Jenna was home by then. She was in the living room watching television. I was in my bedroom with the door closed. I heard the front door open. I heard them talking. I could not hear the words, but I heard the tone. His voice was low and tight. Her voice was high and sharp. Then shouting. Then a door slammed. Then silence. I did not leave my room. The next morning, Jenna was gone. Her car was not in the garage. Her toothbrush was not in the bathroom. Her clothes were still in the closet, but her suitcase was missing. Daniel sat at the kitchen table with his head in his hands. He looked like a boy. He looked like the 6-year-old who had fallen off his bike and scraped his knee and come running to me with tears streaming down his face. I sat across from him. "She admitted it," he said. His voice was flat, dead, like the voice of a man reading the weather. "She has been seeing him for 8 months. His name is Derek. He is a partner at her firm. He is married. His wife is pregnant too. They are both due in the same month. Jenna and Derek. The 2 pregnant women. The 2 betrayed spouses. The 2 families built on lies." I said, "What about the house?" He looked up at me. His eyes were red. His face was swollen. "The house is hers," he said. "I signed the papers. I was stupid. I was in love. I thought she would never leave me. I thought the baby would make us stronger. She said it was just a precaution, a safety net. For the baby. For the family. I believed her. I said, we can fight it. We can hire a lawyer. We can prove fraud, duress, something." He shook his head. "Her father's lawyers are the best in the state. They wrote the agreement. They made sure it was ironclad. I signed it voluntarily. I was not under duress. I was just an idiot who trusted his wife." The words hung in the air. An idiot who trusted his wife. I thought about Frank, about the 42 years, about the lies I had told myself, about the things I had chosen not to see, about the way he looked at the woman from the garden club, about the way he started coming home late, about the lipstick on his collar that he said was from a hug, about the phone calls he took in the garage, about the night I found the receipts from the motel on the other side of town, and I put them in the trash without saying a word because I was afraid of being alone. I stayed. I stayed for the children. I stayed for the mortgage. I stayed because I had nowhere else to go. And then he died, and I was alone anyway. I looked at my son, my beautiful boy, the baby I had held in my arms at 3 a.m. while Frank slept because he had to work in the morning. The little boy who had drawn me pictures with crayons and told me I was the best mom in the whole world. The teenager who had cried on my shoulder when his first girlfriend broke his heart. The man who had just lost his wife, his house, and his future in one conversation. I said, "You can stay with me." He said, "Stay where?" I looked around the kitchen I had cooked in, cleaned in, cried in, the kitchen that was no longer mine. "I do not know," I said. 3 weeks. That is how long it took from the day Jenna came home with the moving boxes to the day she packed her own things and left. 3 weeks from the first crack to the last. The nursery is still there.
Sage green walls, white crib, lavender glider. Charlotte is due in 4 months. Jenna is living with her parents now. Derek is still married. His wife found out the same week I found out. Someone sent her an anonymous letter. I do not know who. I have my suspicions, but I will never tell. Daniel is staying in the house for now. He cannot afford to leave. He cannot afford to fight. The mortgage is in Jenna's name, but the payments still come out of their joint account, and she has not stopped them yet. He sleeps in the master bedroom alone. He eats takeout over the sink. He does not go into the nursery. I found him standing in the hallway one night, looking at the closed door. He was not crying. He was just standing there, like a man waiting for a bus that would never come. I moved my sewing machine back into the guest room. I did not ask permission. Jenna was gone. The room was empty. I set up my table in front of the window where the cardinals nest. I put my grandmother's rocking chair in the corner. I stacked my books on the built-in shelves that Jenna had installed for the baby. I turned on the radio and played it loud. I am making a quilt. For Charlotte. Not the one from Etsy. Mine.
It is yellow and white with little flowers. I work on it every night. I do not know if I will ever give it to her. I do not know if Jenna will let me see her. I do not know if Daniel will ever forgive himself, or if I will ever forgive myself for the things I did not say. The other day I drove past the old house, the one Frank and I bought in 1987, the one with the rose bushes. Someone else lives there now, a young couple with a golden retriever and a swing set in the backyard. I sat in my car across the street and watched them. The woman was watering the flowers. The man was pushing the little girl on the swing. She was laughing. The sound carried across the lawn. It sounded like hope. It sounded like the beginning of something, not the end. I sat there until the streetlights came on. Then I drove back to my son's house, to the guest room, to the sewing machine, to the half-finished quilt, to the silence that fills every room when the people you love have broken your heart and each other's hearts, and no one knows how to put the pieces back in the right places. Daniel asked me last week if I regret selling my house. I looked at him for a long time. I thought about the truth. The truth was that I regretted trusting Jenna. I regretted not seeing the cracks earlier. I regretted staying quiet when I should have spoken. But I did not regret my son. I could not regret my son. He was the best thing I ever made, even now, even broken. I told him no, I do not regret it. We make choices. We live with them. That is all. He nodded. He went back to the kitchen. He opened the refrigerator. He stood there for a long time, looking at nothing. Then he closed the door and walked upstairs. I heard his footsteps cross the floor above me, the floor of the master bedroom, the floor where his wife used to sleep, the floor that would soon hear the cries of a baby who might never know her grandmother's name. I turned on the radio. I threaded the needle. I kept sewing.